I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Kodiak Island Borough Assembly work session of Thursday, July 31st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. and we are in the Assembly chambers. First item is citizens' comments. This is call-in number is 907-486-3231 and the toll-free number is 855-492-9202. Limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and this is the only opportunity to speak under citizens' comments. Next week at the regular meeting, there's 2 citizens' comments, one at the beginning and one near the end. So anybody wishing to come forward and speak, please do so at this time, please.
Oh, there's no pen.
Oh.
Good evening. My name is Rhea Hayes, and we are here tonight representing Kodiak Reentry. We appreciate being provided with a platform this evening to continue to show transparency in our efforts to support the community of Kodiak. Kodiak Reentry has had 4 new referrals this week who have become participants by completing our intake process. 2 of these participants came to us by referral from the Alaska Public Defender's Agency, 1 by the Kodiak Jail and 1 by word of mouth. Requests participants have recently had from the program include helping in the steps it takes to be compliant with court-mandated interlock devices, explaining and connecting participants with healthcare opportunities and what is offered by different providers, multiple asks in accessing the assessment process and inpatient treatment, including completion of a bed-to-bed transfer set for August 26th by utilizing what was learned from working with AmeriCorps. Needs have been met in providing supportive services, connecting counselors from Dillingham to Kodiak for aftercare treatment following inpatient for a returning participant. Discussions in how Kodiak Reentry can assist in moving an individual into a safer living arrangement, help keeping electric paid during inpatient treatment, extensive volunteer peer support within the Kodiak Jail and outside in utilizing the Kodiak Public Library as a meeting space, requests for the attendance of several court hearings, working to enroll an individual into the upcoming Kodiak College undergraduate certification in welding program, which is defined as a gainful employment program, and helping individuals make connections inside the recovery community and create additional meetings. We have also begun work in providing a requested proposal to the Salvation Army in support for their women's transitional housing program. These are services provided since we saw you last. And behind the scenes, we are doing extensive work researching professional development and effective groups should we be given the privilege of funding. My final point tonight is an acknowledgement of gratitude to Susan Smith and the Brother Francis Shelter. The shelter is, I believe, the frontline prevention in keeping so many people off the streets and out of jail cells every single night. It is a lifeline for keeping families housed. Without guidance, time, and support given through Susan personally and working with us as an agency, Kodiak Reentry would not be where it is today. I was guided through this grant process by Susan every step of the way, and the community is lucky to have her. In closing this time, it is important to express that in recovery, we learned that expectations keep us sick. So we come to the assembly without expectation, only explanation and pride in what Kodiak Reentry is proving to provide. We will stay humble and keep working hard, whatever monetary outcome comes our way, and continue to express our gratitude for the work you all do in keeping the Kodiak community a place I never want to leave.
Thank you. Great timing. And our thing is, I didn't say it, but most of you know the drill. State your name for the record, sign in, make sure the green light is on the mic, and you've got 3 minutes to speak. So please continue, come forward, and
My name is Blythe Brown. I work for Kodiak Soil and Water Conservation District. I don't have a prepared speech or anything, but I just want you guys to be aware that I'm here to answer questions if you have any questions about our application for the nonprofit funding. We're kind of a quasi-state nonprofit, and we have been, we're very grateful that this community has welcomed us into the nonprofit world, even though we're kind of a weird entity. We wouldn't be able to survive without the funds from the borough. We have fish passage projects, native plant growing project, agriculture now. We did just get some new funding from NRCS and BLM for some of our projects, but we're still sorely lacking in the invasive plants project funding. And your nonprofit funds have assisted us with our outreach and education mostly, so that we can concentrate our few other funds on our projects on the ground. The borough has never specifically provided any funding for invasive species control, but we do leverage your nonprofit funds for our other funding that requires matching and partnering. So I'm here if any questions are needed as you talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bly.
My name is Susan Smith, and I'm the Executive Director of the Brother Francis Shelter. Good evening, everyone. As tonight is your final review of nonprofit funding, I would like to clarify why my historical funding appears low on page 23 in your nonprofit agenda item report. Despite the challenges of COVID during FY22, Brother Francis was fully funded and operational. We even took on additional responsibilities and administered COVID funds to desperate Alaskans. Our decision not to request funds was a testament to our financial stability and our commitment to support other nonprofits. Little did I know it would take years for us to regain our status. If you turn to page 26 in your report, you will see an accurate picture of our past relationship. The borough funded us in a range of $70,000 to $20,000 annually in the pre-COVID years. We're not just a shelter, we are a lifeline and crucial safety net for our community. We are Kodiak's humanitarian aid program, a unique entity that provides necessities such as food and shelter to the homeless and citizens when emergencies arise. What BFSK delivers to this community is nothing short of remarkable, and your support is necessary to leverage additional grants. The shelter was created from needs and tragedies identified by both city and borough governments over 30 years ago, and we have been steadfast partners ever since. We've answered that call. We make this community a safer place to live. I think organizations providing emergency services should be a priority in the health and social services funding category. Brother Francis is one of those organizations open 365 days of the year for citizens in distress. I also want to address the comments that were made in the previous meeting regarding opioid funds. I know that's a separate category and it remains in a separate silo, and it can't be used to balance, offset, or substitute for nonprofit funds. Brother Francis needs nonprofit funds to keep the doors open, and then we are available to assist with opioid remediation if selected. Thanks again for your time and all that you do for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Hello, Assembly members, Mayor Arndt, and Manager Williams. My name is Mary Lynchide, and I know several of you. I'm a 40-year resident of Kodiak. I love to hike, often on Near Island or Pillar Mountain, and sometimes I follow up with a cold dip at Gibson Cove. You know what I don't see much of anymore in those spaces like I did in the 80s? Homeless camps. Yes, there's the occasional tent or tarp, but it's not like it was when I arrived in 1985. Back then, long-term camping or squatting in the woods was not uncommon. That changed when the Brother Francis Shelter opened 34 years ago. The presence of the shelter has made a visible difference in our community, not only in reducing homelessness in public spaces, but in offering dignity, safety, and hope to those going through the hardest times of their lives. Our director, Susan, has provided you with many of the details about how Brother Francis Shelter Kodiak serves those struggling with food and housing insecurity. I'm here to thank the Assembly for its past support and to ask you to continue supporting the shelter by fully funding the requested amount. Investing in the shelter is not just a compassionate act, it's also a smart one. It reduces pressures on emergency services, improves public health, and keeps our community safer and more livable for everyone. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It also aligns with the values we hold here in Kodiak, taking care of our neighbors and making sure no one falls through the cracks. Local government support signals that our borough stands behind practical, effective solutions and that we're serious about addressing homelessness in ways that work. The shelter is a proven part of the solution, and your continued funding ensures that work can go on. Thank you for your time and leadership you've already shown.
Thank you, Mary. Any calls at this time? No calls?
Good evening. My name is Mary Gillas Hover. I've lived in Kodiak for over 38 years. I am a social worker and state and national certified substance abuse counselor. Due to shortage in funding for my unique position, I'm currently working on an as-needed basis at the Brother Francis Shelter. I would like to thank you for your services as public servants and acknowledge your many years and continued support to our nonprofit organizations in Kodiak, especially the Brother Francis Shelter. The Brother Francis Shelter is an integral part of the Kodiak Island's continued thriving existence. Brother Francis Shelter support not only the homeless individuals, but families facing homelessness and individuals down on their luck or needs help in navigating the social service delivery system, giving them a direction or jump start towards self-directed aspirations. The Brother Francis Shelter is easily accessible, and since being around for a very long time, the poor in our community, or anybody for that matter, comes to us for assistance in whatever they may need. If we can't provide the help they need, we direct or refer them to those who could. This service is above and beyond of the usual services the Brother Francis Shelter offers, like housing and feeding at night, 365 days a year, homelessness prevention, and what have you. As a social worker, I have a unique perspective and bigger range of knowledge about human purpose, existence, and struggles, and can honestly tell you that Brother Francis Shelter fills a lot of gaps in services to the poorest in our neighborhood, who could be your brother or sister, mother or father, or your child. Please continue to fund the BFSK, or Brother Francis Shelter. We do not turn anybody away. We help everybody residing in our Kodiak Island archipelago, not just within the island, but of course the villages and guests that comes and visit our beautiful island. Again, thank you for all your support, and I hope that you fully fund the Brother Francis Shelter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak, please do so.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Molly Miller, and I am the Executive Director of the Kodiak Arts Council. And every year, our work to sustain and promote the arts reaffirms just how vital the arts are for building community, strengthening connections, and improving the quality of life on Kodiak Island. We apply for Borough funding for 2 of our programs. One is our Some Arts for Kids program, and the other is our Community Theater program. The Some Arts for Kids program offers, for over 30 years, has offered a quality, affordable arts education to the children of Kodiak. We employ local teaching artists, and over the past 10 years, due to our partnership as part of the Munoctic project grant, we have been able to offer stipends for educators to join our teaching artists and receive hands-on experience in arts education and lesson planning. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but that grant is ending in December. And while we are looking for other funding, the current cuts to federal funding and our economic uncertainty has made competition for grants very fierce. This year, our Some Arts program offered one 3-week camp, which was headed by Jared Griffin, and 12 one-week camps, 2 multi-day camps, and three single-day camps. We had a total of 195 students register for our camps, and we were able to provide over $1,000 in financial aid scholarships, so there were 7 families whose children were able to attend our camps at no cost. Our community theater program, we produce 2 productions per year. This year we'll be producing a holiday concert with our community choir and community orchestra, and the play Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare in the spring. Last year, we produced the play A Christmas Story, which featured a cast of 10 adults, 9 children, and a volunteer corps of over 25 people working behind the scenes. Our musical theater production of Cinderella played to an audience of 1,853 people, and it was our first musical in almost a decade with a live orchestra. We had a cast of 41 actors, singers, and dancers, which ranged from adults to children. There were 18 orchestra musicians, and we had over 45 volunteers behind the scenes working on costume sets and props. I talk about the age range that we have because one thing that when we talk about risks for youth, and I'm going to run out of time, is protective factors. And the single most important protective factor you can have is if a child has a relationship with an adult that is outside their family, that is a positive one. So I really want you to think about that when you think about our funding, and I thank you for your consideration.
If you have a little more you'd like to say, you're welcome to.
Okay, I have just one more sentence. I just want to reiterate what some of the other nonprofits have reiterated, that municipal support is really important because we are our funders outside this community look to see if the municipality is supporting your organization, and we are able to leverage the funds we receive from you in other grant applications, which is why it is so important to us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
I'm sorry.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, my name is Monty Hover, and I'm here to support the Brother Francis Shelter, funding of it. I did work there for 30 years, for those of you that don't know me, but I have no affiliation with it, no professional affiliation with it at this time. The shelter is the hub of services for nonprofits here in Kodiak. When the Women's Resource Center, somebody doesn't meet their criteria, they get wound up being sent to us. Providence, if somebody isn't, they're sick, but they're not sick enough to be in the hospital, yet too sick to, be in the streets, they're sent to us. Same for Canna. I could go on, but we're basically the hub of services for the nonprofits, and we're very grateful to do it. The last few years was a absolutely horrible time for our country with COVID, And Brother Francis is one of 4 organizations in the state of Alaska that stepped forward and distributed funds so that families wouldn't basically get kicked out of their homes. And if memory serves me, which is, who knows, 71-year-old man, but we helped about 800 families to keep them from getting, kicked out of their homes. Now, as a secondary note, that also was 800 landlords that got paid, so they didn't lose their properties. Not that all of them would, but maybe some of them would have. So the bottom line is, as was iterated earlier, we thank you for the 30-some years of support that you've given the shelter. I've said it before, but it bears repeating that there's no way we would have survived without your support. Many years ago, I asked a grant manager, why is the local government funding so important to you folks? And she said, Monty, we just want to make sure that the community wants the shelter as badly as we want the shelter. And I've never forgotten that. It's been well over 20 years ago. So they do look at it, and we use your support as leverage, sometimes formally, sometimes informally, but the support is necessary for us to keep going. Brother Francis is now settling back into its normal operations after COVID. We had to boost up in order to distribute over $10 million. We had to boost up positions and work 24/7. But now we're settled back down. They're settled back down to just 2 positions during the day, which is what we had for 20-some years. And we're back to needing your help very badly in order to stay in business. Government, federal funding is shaky at best. Who knows what state funding is going to do? So we need you folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else wishing to come forward? Please do so at this time.
My name is Adam Powers. I'm the Operations and Maintenance Director for KIBSD, and I am here to answer any potential questions tonight and represent the district's interest in the pool in reference to the WTI report that you guys got. And if there's any maintenance-oriented type questions, I'm here to answer them for you, or can answer whatever I can answer. I'm available. Just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wishing to come forward? Dan.
Good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. I'm here to talk about garbage and Dark Lake. So when I bought Mill-Bay Storage from Jim Ashford, he said, whatever you do, do not let the borough put dumpsters back there. It will be a nightmare. And I was like, oh, come on, Jim. It's not that big of a deal. It is a nightmare. So if you ever have a question on the ongoing life question of are people inherently good or bad, spend 2 hours at Dark Lake and you will answer that question for forever. So I was raking dirt the other day over, we're putting a yard in, and so I was there for a couple of hours. During the day, so not in the middle of the night, not crazy early in the morning, the sheer volume of ridiculously illegal dumping is out of control. And I believe the only way to stop it, there's 2 things. One, you either move them, get rid of them from there, which I think is probably the option you're going to have to deal with in the short term. We have to adopt UMOD if you haven't already, and we have to start fining people. It is egregious how bad it is. So, and I'm going to call out a couple of them just because they're large entities, but we're talking City of Kodiak, their truck, not a harbor truck, don't worry, but the City of Kodiak, truckloads of black garbage bags going down to Dark Lake. The owner of the Sheraton Apartments, their blue truck, the one that we provide a very discounted tax bill to, truckloads of trash being hauled because their dumpsters are full and they probably don't want to pay for another one, which I get. It's just not how life works. And so what they're doing is they're hauling truckloads over there, presumably to, now the rest of them I'm not going to call out by names, but the reality is the vast majority of small contractors in our community haul truckloads of waste. I watched on the other day while I was raking, I watched a contractor with 2 full truckloads. He filled a whole dumpster and a half with construction debris. I watched another contractor send a whole entire tub and tub surround. I watched another truck filled with like grass clippings and other wood debris, and they did put it in the dumpster. They didn't put it on the other trash pile, but that was in about a 2-hour period, and my kids live there, and my daughter's like, Dad, it's nonstop every single day. So I would encourage you, if you don't realize the magnitude of the problem, and some people that are honestly good people in our community that I think just don't get that they're driving up everybody's I mean, when you look at the contract for garbage on how we're billed as individuals, everybody illegally dumping there is driving all of our rates up. I have for years now been a firm believer that we have to adopt UMOT and we have to start fining people, because that's the only thing that's going to correct behavior. Word will get out really, really quickly when you charge somebody $300 or $400 or $500 for illegally dumping an engine block. I think everybody understands an engine block does not belong in the dumpster, let alone beside the dumpster. I think, again, we're just letting people get away with it, and we need to stop.
Go ahead and finish.
So, anyways, that's all I had to share. I am going to be here. If you have questions, there's only 3 people that own private property along that road. It's myself, it's Brent Art, and then my brother Sam. And the 3 of us definitely recognize that this is it's gotten to be a pretty out of control problem. So, anyways, I'm very glad you put it on your agenda tonight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming forward, Dan. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak under citizens' comments? Any phone calls? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda items. First item is nonprofit funding discussion, final review of applications, and at this time I'll turn that over to our manager, Amy Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Assembly had its first nonprofit discussion at the July 10th work session. Changes to your packet tonight from the work session are corrections to the Kodiak Reentry Incorporated submissions. Remember, they were both under opioid funds. The correct one got moved up to Health and Social Services. Updated budget totals, and you can find summary sheets in the packet on pages 223, 102, and 163. I also gave each of you tonight the summary sheets as printouts separate, so that as we go through each category, you could see what the requests were and then what was discussed at the work session on the 10th. If there were changes, the only change that was made from requests happened in Education, Culture, and Recreation to Hope Community Resources, who asked for $10,000 in that category, but the max in that category is $5,000, so we moved them down to $5,000. That was the only one that was changed. I think there's a couple of important things to note. One, from Fund 100-191 for the college and libraries, the Assembly discussed on taking the UAF Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center funding out of the Fisheries Economic Development Fund. And because the Education, Culture, and Recreation funds didn't equal the whole $100,000, there was $36,500 that would be remaining. We talked about moving that over to the Health and Social Services category to help fund those. And then that was pretty much the end of our discussion until tonight.
Okay. Questions? Discussion? Ryan?
Well, I think if we're going to spend any time talking about this, let's do the low-hanging fruit with the opioid fund. This, to me, is a relatively straightforward request and approval of funds. I understand that this is also the first time that we've tapped into this fund. So I would just caution our recipients that are here that this is not sustainable funding by any means, because you can see the fund balance as it depletes. But I would encourage us to spend some time talking about that and see if we can come to a quick consensus on an agreement, and then move on to probably some of the greater discussions.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. For the public's information, I would state that the the budget, the Fund 273, use of opioid funds. The fund balance on that right now is $122,877,000. And request for this year are $79,095. That leaves funds remaining after fully funding requests of $43,782. And then it depends upon what funds might come into the borough during the course of the next 11 months as far as what would be available there next year. But what Ryan's saying is we don't have enough money right now to fund $79,000 again at this time next year. So just for the public's information. Scott, you got to...
I support Mr. Sherritt's statement.
Okay. Any other comments on the opioid fund? Larry?
I'm also supportive, as I was last week. We talked about it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, it sounds like that one has got a consensus on there. So we set that one aside and move on. Ryan?
I'd like to go ahead and focus our attention then on the Kodiak College and Libraries Fund, which would be probably the second easiest to discuss. We did discuss moving funds for the University of Alaska Fairbanks request, and we did receive, correct me if I'm wrong, we did receive a thumbs up. Yep, so we know we can do that. So although we have $100,000 in this fund balance for allocation, we are able to move funds to fully grant these requests. Our finance director also concurred with that, so I would like to accept this as presented on this sheet that the manager gave out.
Amy, for the public's information, would you describe where that money's coming from?
Sure. Every time we get a fisheries disaster payment into the Kodiak Island Borough, instead of putting that into our general fund, we set up an account. The name of it is the Fisheries Economic Development Fund, and we set that money aside to support fisheries in any way that the Assembly thought we could best do that. And so on the 10th, we recognized that this would be a very good way to start using some of that money. And that is, hopefully we don't get a lot more money in that account because it only comes from disasters, but we do have plenty of money in there to fund that this year.
Larry?
I think we also talked about any unused money from fiscal '25 could be rolled over with a budget adjustment to fund the same account.
So what we did talk about was the fact that UAF didn't use all of their money last year, and they're going to be returning some of that. We have not received that yet, but sometime in the future we could do that or put that back in the fisheries. Because we're talking a different fiscal year now, there's different rules that we'll have to talk to the finance director about. But yes, we are expecting about $9,000 back from the fiscal year 25 nonprofit funding.
I don't want to speak for the finance director, but when she addressed it 2 weeks ago, she went through the process of what would take. The reason I bring it up, it seems money that what we dedicate the previous year and do not use would easily fall into the same use the following year once we go through all of the steps. Thank you.
Scott?
I support this.
Okay. Further discussion? Thumbs up? Okay, so the intent is to move that, fully fund the 100,000 in there and the 28,910 out of the University of Alaska Fairbanks, Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center. Okay, then Ryan?
Sure. So let's go ahead and address our requesters at $5,000. Yeah, our requesters at $5,000. This is $63,500 in. I'm sorry, $69,800 in request. We have a suggestion from the 710 work session to fund $63,500 out of the $100,000, leaving a balance of $36,500 to move into the next category up.
there agreement? Thumbs up. One, Scott.
I think we're gonna run into a problem.
Would-
And we're saying $5,000 apiece for each of these. I suggest we reduce it to 4,000. That would leave us with a leftover amount of 48,500 to help with the requests for 192, 110.
To me, that's taking it from 5,000 to 4,000 is a 20% reduction in the small ones. That I think, unless you're going to do that to all the big ones across the board, I can't see doing that.
I think we're gonna do it to the big ones.
I think you're going to have to do a little bit more. You've also got, I guess that brings into the discussion on the big ones at this time, because you're looking at tying these things together. I'm seeing the requests on the health and social services. We have $100,000 in there. The requests are $200,524, which basically is a deficit of $100,524. If you move the $36,500 over at this time from the education, cultural, and recreation, you have a deficit of $64,000. But I also see that when I look at the 2025 funding, and you take Kodiak re-entry out of this $200,000 request because they're under the opioid, I'm seeing Amy.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, they have two different submissions in, one for opioid and one for health and social services.
Okay, well, I say we don't have enough money across the board, so I don't know that you're going to be able to fulfill all these requests. So looking for suggestions. Scott's suggestion is to take 20% off of the little ones, take them from 5,000 to 4,000. Anyone else wish to? Ryan?
Yeah, we did discuss this in our work session about the importance of nonprofit funding, specifically this year, now more than ever, with the uncertainty at federal levels and state levels, as our public testimony yielded this evening in support of that statement. So I am not in favor of cutting any of the nonprofit funding right now, and I think that it would be prudent for this assembly to figure out how to fund them. I understand that we're asking to spend more than what our budget amounts were, but again, during a previous work session, we also talked about funds being returned. We talked about funds moving. We talked about unknown funds coming back. We gently skimmed over, if I recall correctly, an uncertain PILT balance that we weren't certain how much was coming in. So, and I see in the manager's report that we do have an excess in PILT. So I think that it's absolutely prudent for us to fully fund these nonprofits in a small community that does have, we've got some struggles here as a community, and we've heard that testimony repeatedly over the last several sessions. So I'm not in support of cutting us down to 4,000. I am in support of fully funding it and figuring out how to do it. Thanks.
Larry?
I think the borough is facing uncertainty with our revenues, especially with recent acts by the legislature and the governor, and certainly the impacts of federal funding and not knowing what's going on. But an agency like ours, University of Alaska, school district, you have large amounts of funds in their budget, but nonprofits don't. I think we can handle the deficit. They can't. And the uncertainty that we're facing on our level is much greater at the level where people are just getting by. So I would support fully funding the requests that we have now and to as we get a better picture of the end of FY '25, we take funds and we move to cover those expenses, the same way we do when we execute a contract and it comes in more than we think and we have to fill it. I sort of look at it the same way. Thank you.
Ryan?
You know, we could potentially fund those Dark Lake abusers and overfund this entire nonprofit. Just saying.
Yeah. Dave?
Going back to our brief discussion on the education, culture, and recreation, this new request from the PTSA, I can't say I'm comfortable with funding picking a winner of a PTA. We've got one from the Kodiak Middle School, but next year we'll have 8 requests from every PTSA. So that one I would object to.
It's the middle school PTSA $3,500 request. Comment, Ryan?
My comment is, so the PTSA request for $3,500. I unfortunately cannot speak intelligently about this. I surrender my disposition, not even really knowing what this is. So, at least I'm honest.
Steve?
It's more of a question. Is that PTSA actually registered as a nonprofit? Has it been checked? It is? Okay. Do all the schools have that registered as a nonprofit? So potentially next year we could get a large number of requests.
We could, sure.
Okay.
This is different from PTA.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that. It's not the same thing at all.
Okay.
Also, this project is for their private, $1,000 of it's for their private pantry, where they get food to kids that don't have food at home. And they organized a food drive in February, and then this money would help go towards that. And then $2,500 of that is for an art mural club that happens after school. So even if you weren't into art, which there would be people who argue with you, but if you're not, at least I would think the $1,000 for the food pantry is a very worthwhile cause.
Larry?
Thank you for the clarification.
I'm supportive of it. I think it's a good thing for kids. PTSA stands for Parent Teacher Student Organization. It's like a PTA. It's national affiliated. It's just nomenclature. And the PTSA is what they call it at the middle school. The high school used to be called the same thing. You know, some schools are members of the national PTA, some aren't. It's not that big a deal. But I do support things that support kids and what they do, and certainly feeding and helping kids get through the system and kid activities. And I think it's a small amount of money within the big picture.
Okay, so any further comments on the education, culture, and recreation, which is currently suggested at $63,500. So we'll move that one aside. That's what I'm asking right now. I'm not seeing anyone express any objection. Ryan?
Well, I don't want to disregard Dave's comment. I do recall, as soon as you said food in the pantry, I do recall that that discussion, and I did really admire the portion for feeding hungry kids. I can tell you that my largest expenditure at the paintball field is actually food for the kids. So, kids, to me, this is very important. So, without disregarding Dave's comment, I'd absolutely still like to fund, if I recall the conversation, 1,000 was for the food pantry. So I would, if we're going to discount that, I would still like at least $1,000 going toward that food pantry. But I also understand we can't give stipulations. We can't say, here's your $1,000. It has to go to the food pantry. So, you know, if you recall last year when we got to this point with the nonprofit funding, I also pledged my assembly stipend. So if we do cut that, I will fund that with my assembly stipend. So take some comfort in that, I guess. So.
Okay, well, once again, I didn't see, other than Ryan, you looking at reducing that, I didn't see any agreement of anyone else shaking their head on it. So that would say it stays right now, unless I see something different from the group here. And I'm not seeing it. So it's 63,500 on there, which then leaves the 36,500 to carry over to the health and social services, which gives us the 100,000 that was in there on the budget, plus the 36,500 left from the education, cultural, and recreation, for 136,500. But we still have deficit spending within that, and the 2025 fiscal year funding was 135,000 on there, is what we funded for 25, this last fiscal year. So we've got a deficit position right now of $64,024. What's the wishes of the assembly? Larry?
As I said earlier, I would move to cover it as from fund balance, and as we get a better idea of our fund balance from FY25, that we move money into it to cover the account and balance it out.
Yeah. Ryan?
So I would actually just like to talk about each one. I'd like to, you know, make sure that if we're not in consensus to draw from the general fund to cover the $64,000 and we're going to make cuts, I believe that we should talk about each one individually. So if we have consensus to move this forward spending funds, then I will turn my microphone off.
I actually like the idea of going through them, because we have a deficit position, and just taking the assumption that we're going to fund it out of fund balance, I don't think is necessarily appropriate. When you look at all of a sudden after we passed our budget, the state comes up and says we have to come up with another, how much on the funding for our school debt?
Just under 300,000.
Just under $300,000 more. So we got major dips taking place on the so-called surplus funding that we had from the past year. And I have a problem with continuing to do that when we don't have all the information in on what's going to happen there. So I like the idea of going through these one by one, Ryan. Ryan?
Well, I like big picture stuff, so I'm going to just kind of, I need to draw some dots. So we know that we were expecting 1.6 in PILT, we got 1.924. Let's take the $300,000 for the school out of that. That leaves us $24,000. Let's figure out where we can cut, let's just say half of this $64,000 deficit down to 32. Would that be fair?
That would be fair.
Could everybody get kind of behind that?
No.
Okay, so.
Steve? Dave?
It's either that or figure out our total budget, and that or figure out, I was adding up right now, all the different ones, and the 64,000, I haven't had time to do it, but say the 64,000 is 4% of it, then just across the board, cut everybody 4%.
Oh, it's more than that. Amy?
I would like to update my figure to $254,919. So when I said just under 300, it's really just over 250.
Thank you. And that's in addition to the other 1.2 million that we knew about the short funding on the debt.
But we put that into the budget. At the
Right.
254, we did not.
Larry?
Just taking Ryan's logic on the excess money we got from PILT to use that money to cover it. And again, I don't know for sure, but did we not, through repositioning our bond payments, increase our revenue or decrease the amount we have to pay in bond payments?
In the future?
We did, but that's already a part of the budget. The only money that is coming in that we weren't aware of right now is that PILT money, where we got 324,000, approximately more than we expected.
All right, thank you.
Ryan?
It sounds like the PILT can fully help fund this, and so I'd like to just encourage our assembly to cover and fully fund this using what we appear without further, discussion from PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes, which is a public benefit, and all of these nonprofits are also public benefits, so I think it passes the muster. So,
Okay, thumbs up over from Dave. Larry's got thumbs up. Scott? That's one way. Steve? Okay. Consensus. Moving forward to next week. Thank you, Amy. Okay. Next item is Dark Lake illegal dumping discussion. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Mr. Rohr told you about earlier, Dark Lake has gotten out of control. So we wanted to discuss the illegal disposal of waste at the location and the excessive cleanup costs that have been associated with the effort. Nova just handed you out a presentation that was made by Engineering Facilities, so you can see some pictures. And Cody, who is now our Engineering and Facilities Director as of July 28th, is here tonight to walk you through that presentation and tell you what's going on at that site.
Quick presentation. Point it this way. All right. Okay, so brief agenda, just introduction, progress photos, and overall cost, and then discussion recommendation, which it sounds like we have another recommendation from the community. So Dark Lake Services, a portion of Service Area 1. Yep, green light. Is this better?
Okay.
Dark Lake Services, a portion of Service Area 1 residents. It also is covered by the Service Area 1 contract for maintenance and repairs. There's 6 20-yard roll-off containers, 1 recycle roll-off with weekly haul services and recyclables collection point through our local recycling company. The issues and concerns that I've experienced in my short period of time being involved with Dark Lake is the illegal disposal, as was discussed today, and the abuse of the dump pad locations throughout the community, but Dark Lake seems to be the one that gets hit the hardest. And then we have excessive cleanup costs, not only with staff, but with contractors that we hire. An example of that is the work order. We recently updated our road service area contracts, and so we rolled out a work order system. It cost us $3,250 to have basically 10 hours of work done at Dark Lake, and the bill tickets came in for that. I want to say it was somewhere around 20 or 30 tons. It was quite a bit of material that they removed from the land or to the landfill. On June 18th, immediately following, I guess, point of clarification there, so that's June 12th. So by June 18th, we published our first Facebook post, and this is strictly for the green waste location at Dark Lake, which is adjacent to the dump pad, or the dumpsters at the dump pad. We did a Facebook post. I know we don't always love Facebook, but sometimes that's the best way to get community information out there. We'd already had some signs that said illegal dumping's not allowed. There was some reference to fines there, but we have no real way of enforcing that. And so on the 18th, this was our lovely, freshly cleaned area. So 48 hours post cleanup, we had the 5,220 pounds of estimated waste. And so transitioning to June 23rd, so now we're 1 week. We have an ATV frame, numerous articles of furniture and things of that nature out there. June 25th, we went ahead and put out a second Facebook post. You can see that it's almost doubled in size at that point in time. By June 30th, we started collecting some windows and furniture, recliners, a bathtub. I believe the Fuller went away but came back. more furniture by July 2nd, which was saturated. And so every day we have staff cleaning up, so they pick apart part of this in the morning, and it's our maintenance staff. I know deferred maintenance is a huge topic at the borough, and so we hired another maintenance technician, and we have a temporary laborer. And so for the first part of their day, they travel around town to the dump pads and pick up trash. But we can't keep up at the rate that it's being applied to this specific location. So we got more signage installed as discussed from the June 18th. Had them posted in concrete, and then ended up on July 8th going and putting a construction hurricane fence up. I had the pleasure of sitting out there for 2 hours, one of which was my lunch break, and talking to community members that were yarding material over this fence, telling me basically that they did not care. It was too far to drive to the landfill, and they would continue to dump it here because it was convenient. And so went ahead, put this together. Dump pad cleanup cost, we roughly 3 hours a day. With a laborer, it's about $532 staff time. For a maintenance specialist without a laborer, it takes about 6 hours a day, that's about over $1,000. And so what that also means, these are just hourly rates for the staff. This isn't the cost that it's costing the residents of the borough and their landfill fees, or the cost that it's costing the borough in deferred maintenance, because these are maintenance professionals that are supposed to be doing maintenance, but they're picking up trash. The labor alone, 4 hours a day, is about $360. And then for 20 hours, a 20-hour event under the current Service Area 1 contract costs about $32.50 for the contractor. But a key note there is the large volume of green waste from the landfill's perspective is we're consuming valuable space that we have in our landfill that's supposed to be lasting us a lot longer. So we don't have a way to forecast exactly what the long-term capacity would be at this rate, but we're seeing it becoming more frequent. Alternative suggestions, I added an extra one on the slides that you have. So I spoke with Alaska Waste Connections, and they don't have open-top dumpsters on island, but they could offer roll-off containers. So we have disposal fees that would be faced with for that, which translates to unaccounted for cost, and then we'd have I know David's here, but we had another conversation about weekly haul fees and things. And then the crew at the landfill has expressed concerns about the sorting of waste, because what happens is then we transfer basically the unsorted waste to the landfill. It either has to get baled, or if they're throwing away like engine blocks, we've had a couple of those, four-wheelers, things of that nature, they have to spend staff time to sort the waste at the landfill. The second option, that's not on this slide, was the basically transference of this to the road service area responsibilities was something that was recommended, where the road service areas would take responsibility for the dumpsters because they are in their service areas, and their contractors are the one doing the work anyways. And then most recently, the conversation that I just heard from a community member today would be enforcing a fine mechanism or something would be another option that's not listed up here. And then this other option, which pretty much everyone that I've talked to, it sounds great that if we shut it down for like a 30-day period and it's impactful, but there's a lot of concerns and the risks of that the dumping is going to occur elsewhere. Right now it's consolidated, and or it'll still happen and they'll just throw it away. Any questions?
Ryan.
I'm gathering my thoughts. Okay, so is it safe to say, or would you say, that the community has essentially made this a transfer site?
Safe to say that that is being treated as a transfer site, correct?
That is costing us dearly.
Can I continue?
Continue.
Would a temporary transfer site be economically feasible based on the number that you put in your spreadsheet here to staff this and sort it and charge it an exorbitant dump fee versus taking it to the landfill, which is very similar to what the municipality of Anchorage does?
In my honest opinion, having rode around with the guys and went to the various dump sites before work, and being more familiar with that from the reports that I get from Alaska Waste, I think if you started a transfer site at this location, this would just happen at one of the other dump pad locations. People genuinely just find whichever one is closest and dump the trash.
Let's see, Steve and, excuse me, Larry and then Steve.
You know, I really wouldn't refer to it as the transfer site. The
Sorry,
transfer,
couldn't see it, Dave.
the transfer sites that I have visited in other communities are clean, well-used, monitored, and kept clean. And they have sites for garbage, they have sites for construction materials, they have sites for green, all easy to put your in. They're monitored by the borough, and they get rid of roll carts that people have on the streets. They get rid of, well, I wouldn't necessarily get rid of dumpsters, but, you know, we had a business person come in here and complain that they said they were, 2 inches above the limit, and they were upset because they wouldn't pick up their garbage unless they paid for another pull. So if you're a business and you want to avoid that, you fill up your dumpster, and where do you take the rest of your waste? You take it to somewhere else. Where does a person that has, my wife came back from the dumpster and said somebody just threw a microwave and a big TV set in there. They shouldn't do that. Well, what other options do they do but to go all the way to the landfill, which, you know, some people may or may not know. It seems like we have a system, and I'm not trying to justify it, a system that, and if you bring your garbage to the landfill, and they're very wonderful people out there, no doubt about it. So I bring my garbage to the landfill and I back my truck in there and I throw it in the pit or close to it. And I walk out with this much debris on my shoes, you know, that I don't want to get back in my truck. I guess what I'm saying is that we have a system that doesn't bring out the very best in our community, if that makes any sense. And whenever we've brought up transfer sites, and several of us have brought them up, we're always told, well, it's too expensive. Okay. But then you get into all of these other problems associated with what we do, from debris left on the side of the road, you know, if you go down the road, cars, garbage. And so what happens is sometimes when we create a system that doesn't work or brings out the worst in it, the first thing we do is to do what one of our speakers said today, is to start fining people. And then we get into cops and robbers, because we haven't solved the nature of the problem. And cops and robbers doesn't win, because you know what I learned with young people in high school? They always win. The only way to work with them is to find out what we want to do and how to solve the real problem. And we haven't solved it with more regulations. We solve it because we don't have a good way to get rid of our garbage. We have dumpsters that attract bears. We have wheel carts that attract bears. And so that's a price that we pay. People are afraid of bears in their own community because we attract them. And we haven't resolved it. And I would really love if the assembly or the powers that be really visited a real nice transfer site and examined what we could do to solve this problem. Because it is a problem in many ways. I'm going to stop talking. But I would really like our community to take a look at it. And if those of you who are visiting Fairbanks, stop and look at one of their transfer sites. I mean, they must have 30 dumpsters that you could put a Volkswagen Bug in. And some people don't know what that is anymore, but it's a small car. And it's clean. They have something for everything, and they're cleaned every week. And you don't mind walking in there. They're sort of fun to visit. They even have a big carport where people can put dressers and motorcycles and things that people want to salvage. And they clean it up every week, which would also benefit our community and people that don't have things. So that's all I'll say. You know, we can add what someone suggested, but it doesn't solve the problem. It just moves it. And it costs hiring somebody to pick up is hiring somebody to keep an eye on it, hiring someone to monitor the cameras. It doesn't work. People are smarter than that. All right, thanks.
Steve and then Dave.
I use that a fair amount. And on some of your options, I see some problems that I believe are, I live on a road in the city, but Alaska Waste has determined my road is too dangerous for their trucks, and therefore I can't have roll-offs, and I have to take it. So therefore, if I have to take it to a service district dumpster, the idea of making service districts responsible is not really fair. The other one is, unless you man it, if you close that for 30 days, I'm willing to bet you're going to get nothing but a bunch of trash not in dumpsters if the dumpsters are gone. The only way you're going to protect it if that thing is watched, and they will sneak in at night because you can't watch it 24 hours a day. Not to be a naysayer, but I think those two options are not very feasible. I have a problem with the open top. I helped after someone died clean a house, and the dumpster that was brought to us, the ceiling to it looked like a spaghetti strainer, and it rained the whole time we were emptying the house. Well, they charge by weight. Well, guess what? When it fills with water, like an open top would, and things get soaked, you're going to pay to dump a lot of water. So I see that as a potential problem. The solution for this is a very hard answer. There is no good one that I can see. People want to cheat the system. Right or wrong, that's just a fact. A member here in public comment mentioned contractors. I've seen the same thing. There are some contractors that are honest and take it to the dump. There are other, especially smaller ones, that I see stuffing dumpsters all the time with old windows, doors, 2x4, sheetrock, pickup loaded at a time. Somehow we have to figure out how to stop that. Larry mentioned that finding, but I think finding contractors is no problem whatsoever. That's for residential garbage. I don't like electronics being dumped in it, but at least it's coming from someone's house. A microwave is not probably part of the remodel per se. But having used that site a lot, yes, something has to be done to be brought it under control. Short of manning it, I don't know what could be done. There are just too many people. I know some restaurants that cheat the system and contractors that do, because I can recognize their trucks. They say you turn them in, big deal. How are they going to enforce it? And I don't know the answer to that, because I don't think there's a system at the moment set up for finding. So they're just like, too bad. And so I think we need to realistically talk about transfer. We need to realistically come up with a way that they could be ticketed, especially if it's a commercial business. That's not what those are for. And there are a couple of businesses in town that have one roll cart, and the rest they take there. Or some other place in town they can dump it. Whether it's the ones on Mission or, and I think I know one other member, I can't remember which one, mentioned, you secure just that one, they're just going to go, they probably are going to just go to another place. So you're playing whack-a-mole. And as I said, it's a serious problem, but I don't have a good answer, and I wish I did. Thanks.
Dave.
Thank you. About 4 years ago, I emailed the assembly because of some illegal dumping going on in my neighborhood. And the answer I got was, well, there's nothing we can do about it because there's no enforcement mechanism. Now here we are 4 years later having this same conversation. So as far as some of these alternative suggestions go, I have zero interest in investing borough resources in chasing the problem until we actually do something to enforce it. We might have regulations that prohibit these things, but as has been mentioned ad nauseum already, there's no UMOT to actually enforce it. So, where there's no service community, there's no code enforcement person to do it. So, I find it abhorrent. It infuriates me when every weekend when I go to the dumpster to find a place to put my household trash, there's hundreds, if not 1,000 pounds of drywall and busted up 2x4s and all the other construction materials that's supposed to be going to the dump that isn't. So I feel very strongly that our fine system needs to be used and enforced, and a few cameras are a lot cheaper solution than a transfer station. And you start handing out, 4 or 5 $500 tickets a week for illegal dumping, and you'll find those cameras pay for themselves real fast.
I'm going to say Amy, then Scott, then myself, then Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our UMOT table has three different, they have littering, just straight littering with 100 for the first offense, 300 for the second offense, and $1,000 for the third offense. And then it has allowing your vehicle to be used in littering with the same. And then it has allowing your vehicle to be used in proper disposal of solid waste at site with the same 100, 300, 1,000. So it's in there. The problem would be just having the code enforcement officer at the site when it's happening. He works 8 hours a day, and so that leaves the other 16 in which that's not. And we have one code enforcement officer. So I think either way, it's going to take more employees if that's what we want to do.
He's also unarmed, and these are very hostile conversations.
Scott?
I think we gotta bust these guys. If it's gonna take more employees, we should have done it years ago. I've been on this board for 7 years, and we've talked about it time and time again. We have rules in the borough, code in the borough that we just simply can't enforce. Why do we have it if we can't enforce it? We have to change that.
Yeah. Okay. Jared, I'll go ahead and put you in here now, please.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'm in Texas right now, and they have a pretty sophisticated citizen reporting system for reporting illegal dumping. In fact, I can't remember what city it is. It's either San Antonio or El Paso. They have an environmental crimes department, and I think statewide it's the phone number is 311. So when you witness, when anybody witnesses dumping, they call that number or whatever, and and they make a report. Knowing that this conversation was happening, I was doing a little bit of research on it, and it's actually, citizen reporting is actually pretty effective. Anywhere between 20 and 30% drop in repeat dumping, and more than 80% of these citizen reports have led to municipal staff action on the report, so that they are legit reports. At least 80% of the time. So I don't think we want to develop anything as sophisticated as an app or a number, but maybe there is something along the lines of citizen reporting, kind of like what Dave was just talking about, that actually had some teeth in it that is actually pretty effective.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank
you. At this time, I'll interject a little bit. Your option B on the service districts is totally out of line, Cody. And the reason it's totally out of line is the dump site at the end of Salif is not just the responsibility of Service District 1. That's where all the residents within the city are dumping from on there. I happened, as Dan said, I spent 2 hours out there on a Saturday, and I was appalled, and I tried to encourage some. Actually went out, had one follow me out, and they did dump out at the landfill. But there's 3 more coming right behind them as I was leaving. So it's out of control, and one of the things that I found is the borough changed it from 500 pounds to 250 and then went to 260 because the scale's in 20-pound increments. And they're saying, I could dump whatever I want here. Why would I want to go out there? So we're penalizing the people that follow the rules. I think you need to increase it to the 500 pounds out at the landfill, and you need to close the dumping off completely. No brush, no nothing. If it doesn't go in the dumpster, it goes out to the landfill, and they're responsible, period, and then start finding them. And the best way to do it, this was on a Saturday, and I was appalled at how much came in there on a Saturday. So code enforcement guy can take Monday off and spend Saturday there. That's an option. But there's got to be a penalty on there. We've got to do something different than what we're doing. And to me, part of that is increasing the amount allowed out the landfill. I've brought that up multiple times. And we're penalizing the people that are being legitimate and taking their stuff out. And we're not to the others. And I have a real problem with that. But this dumpster pad is not the responsibility of Service District 1. And Service District 1, like the other road service districts, it speaks to roads. It's an enterprise fund. It does not say anything about garbage. Cody, you had a comment?
I just had a clarification. We were looking at the maintenance responsibilities for that coming out because we're using the contractor already for that area. And it was a conversation that came up as a concern if the contractor was busy and we'd had to use a different contractor for the work within the service area.
Then, Ryan, you had a comment next.
Thanks. So, there's a lot of passion up here. This assembly's really good at talking trash. So, I actually, first off, I really appreciate the presentation. Having a visual aid and the entire picture enables us to have multiple points of view. And again, I appreciate the time that went into this. So I just kind of want to go all the way back down to basics. As an environmental guy myself, you know, I look at the basics of garbage, and it's reduction, reuse, and recycle. And if we look at the fundamentals of reduction, we don't really have any reduction type principles in place. We don't really have any reuse principles in place. And our recycling center it's not 24/7. And so when we're not following the proven reduce, reuse, recycle tactics of garbage and waste management, this is what we get. So I, too, have been at the Dark Lake areas. I'm an occupant up there, and I've had multiple very contentious, somebody even at one point said I got mad at them, which is weird, about dumping mattresses. And so, but here's what I believe, and I'm probably still naive enough to think this. So I actually just think that we're ill-informed. I actually don't think that we want to go out and break the laws. I don't think that we want to manipulate a system. I think that we like things easy. And when we like things easy, if it results in maybe skirting the law, we can probably figure out some way to self-justify that. So I still think with reduce, reuse, recycle, and the community sentiment for liking easy, this really leads us down the path to furthering this conversation about a transfer station. I do like the increase from 250 pounds to 500 pounds. I personally have been assessed over 250 pounds, and I didn't like that, but it wouldn't cause me to go dump at Dark Lake. And I also really like Jared's idea of citizen reporting. So, you know, and I'm not in a position to govern anything or, you know, to direct anything, but I would really like to see some feasibility from the staff on increasing the weight limit to 500. I would love to see what a citizen reporting scheme would look like, and I would love to see us focus our principles on the reduce, reuse, recycle, because it does work. And maybe at some point we can stop admiring the problem and actually solve it. But again, I appreciate the presentation. I think this is well put together and well presented, so I appreciate it.
Larry.
I also appreciate the thoroughness of your plan. I just want to say, once again, our community is made up of good people. You know, it's not like we have a certain, you know, gang that's doing all this. We have good people, and there's usually a reason that people do certain things. And I'm not trying to justify dumping things out, you know, at Dark Lake in any means, but sometimes, you know, it's hard to escape the momentum of past practice. It really is. And so I really believe, I think it's been inferred assembly-wide, that we really need to look at the whole system and try, instead of saying maybe the system as it is not working right. So instead of fighting people, trying to turn neighbors against each other, which, isn't that how we enforce zoning, by self-reporting? Zoning violations, somebody complains, it's a complaint-based system, I believe. So that would be what we're talking about, having your neighbors tell on you, which would be okay, I suppose. But I believe if we look at the system, we examine what's not working, At the University of Alaska, they were planting grass between all the buildings, and they wanted people to not walk in diagonals, so they set up a perpendicular system of sidewalks to go to different buildings, which was really nice. But guess what the students did? They took the path of least resistance. And finally, the university planted diagonal sidewalks because that's what people use. And if we develop a system that operates the way people are and make it work, I think it's great. As far as going out to the landfill, how many of our retired people have trucks? How do you get rid of a mattress or an old sofa or something like that? I mean, I really believe transfer sites, other things that we could do, but we really need to sit down and say, why are people doing what we're doing? What's wrong with the system? Instead of criminalizing a system that basically asks people to be criminals to actually use the system. We're not justifying it. There's no excuse. I don't really have a problem with fining people. I also believe it should be at 500 because it saves me having to go out there every day of the week to bring 250 pounds, so I have to pay for more, and they use up a lot more time. Thank you.
One of the other things that, we're talking about looking into a few things, as Ryan said, it's come up in the past and we've always had reasons against it. But we used to do it, and that was salvage at the dump. And it would be a matter of taking a look at that also, because that falls into the reuse and remove category. So, but that would be another one to look at. So, any further questions or discussion? We're taking a 7-minute break. Thank you. Still missing two.
Don't get old. I am old. It's my dinner.
All righty. We'll go ahead and reconvene the work session. And we're moving on to discussion about the pool survey findings and staff report. Amy Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Kodiak Island Borough's architectural and engineering firm, Jensen Yorba Wall, coordinated a site visit to the pool facility on May 19th of this year. Their team included a diverse group of specialists, an aquatic consultant from Water Technology Incorporated, a structural engineer from P&D Engineers, and both mechanical and electrical engineers from RSA Engineering. Following their inspection, the team worked collaboratively to develop a draft condition assessment report for the facility. The draft was presented to the Architectural and Engineering Review Board on July 23rd to gather initial feedback and comments. Staff is now bringing the draft to the Assembly for review and any input before finalizing the report. We're hoping tonight to talk about the report and to find out if there's anything else the Assembly is interested in finding out before the report is finalized. And then obviously we'll have to go on to the cost proposals of what repairs would look like once the report is finalized. And our engineering facilities director is here tonight to answer any questions you might have.
Larry, you got a question? Before we get started.
Oh, I can wait for the presentation, if that's what you like to do.
I'd prefer to do the presentation. Scott?
Madam Manager, have we shared the report with the city and the school district?
The school district has a draft. I don't know if the city got a copy yet or not.
Yeah, both entities have the same report that you have tonight, and I apologize, there's not a PowerPoint presentation on this. I just highlighted the cliff notes from the report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead and run through that, Cody.
Sorry, I thought it was on. So the major findings is from WTI is a comprehensive waterproof failure of the tile assembly on the walls, floors, and pool surrounding wet areas. There's also spot repairs that have been done in the last couple of years that are not adequate and are continuing to fail again. If you look at the current recommendations on page, if you're looking at the PDF, I believe it's page 7. WTI is recommending completely demolishing the tile and concrete and repairing all the eroded areas and chasing the rust back in the rebar and applying a waterproofing membrane and then retiling the pool. And in summary, essentially from the tile component standpoint, both architecturally, structurally, and the pool consultant's view was largely the same. However, on the structural component, there is some concrete issues that we had as well, where the rebar or the drains rather have lifted up, and the concrete has either cracked or allowed water infiltration into the pan decking to where the pan decking has been corroded, and you can literally see through it to the concrete. And then from the structural recommendations, the immediate action that they identified that would reduce potential continued issues, because it's a saltwater pool, is for the pool staff to conduct daily freshwater rinse downs, focusing highly on what they refer to as grid line 6, which is the area that the children transit back and forth, or occupants, I guess, in general, from the shower area to the shallow end of the pool. They would also recommend having a structural engineer evaluate the mezzanine and the basement storage room to ensure that it can support the storage load given the conditions of the pan decking and the concrete and things of that nature. We did not hire that structural engineer to go into that level of detail to do structural load calculations, but he was willing to come back and do that. In the short term for the next 2 years, again, the structural engineer did not focus on the tile as much as the structural rebar. He did not have an immediate concern for like a pool collapse or pool failure. However, he recommended removing all of the tile, all of the spalled out concrete, all of the drains, and chasing any erosion, corrosion, things of the like through the concrete to the limitations that were there. And on top of that, we identified numerous cracks in the surge tank walls that can be sealed from the inside, and they do need to be sealed. And then coating all the deck framing connections with zinc, because essentially it's a saltwater pool, and so what's happening is there's salt in the air. It's kind of a heavy salt environment. Things are starting to corrode. There was a comment on here that both WTI and P&D about how some of the components had already been painted and the gutter lines have been painted, and a lot of the findings from the previous survey had been addressed. However, even with those being addressed, they're already showing signs of rusting through or flashing through. From the architectural component, it was mostly focused on the outside, which was rust on exterior steel, interior steel. The exterior walls are showing similar issues that we have on other metal buildings throughout the borough, in which they would benefit from like an annual freshwater wash down. And then a lot of the doors and access areas on the inside and the hardware are corroding. One of the main mechanical issues, those start on page 58 of the report. The sprinklers are corroded because of the type of sprinklers that they are, and it's a saltwater environment. And all of the waste piping is like a ductile iron, and it's split. It's corroded, and there's photos in there if you want to look at it where it's split along the top. Their recommendation is to slip line those pipes or sleeve them and keep the existing structure in place just as a way to mitigate potential continued problems. And then there's some other miscellaneous things, replacement of equipment to meet code requirements, and failed valves and things like that, which we can work with the maintenance staff on figuring out a plan to replace. That essentially summarizes the mechanical components, and then getting into the building automation. The DDC system, much like all of our controls, are outdated. A lot of the HVAC components are obsolete, and a lot of the things the school district can't obtain to replace. But I think Adam would be more able to speak to those components.
Any questions? Larry and then Scott.
It sounds to me like we have a metal building. I really appreciate it. And also I'd like to recognize Adam, and I appreciate the district's facility director being here. It's really nice to see you, and I'm glad to see the borough facilities director working so closely together. I think it helps. Clearly, it seems to me the whole pool needs to be rebuilt, from the systems to the support of the pool, the entire infrastructure. Am I assuming correct, basically, if I were to summarize it?
Not necessarily completely rebuilt, but there's definitely some areas. What I was told is like the bones in the actual structure itself is sound. It's the mechanical devices and things that are outdated and need to be replaced, and it's the actual tile membrane. The tile has the grout, and the tile itself was the membrane for the pool. There was no actual membrane liner like newer pools have, is what I'm learning. And so the water is actually passing through that.
Right. The district spent $48,000 in 2017 to address some of the leaking rust that was coming through. And I think the Great Alaska Flooring Company did the fixing. And if you've ever seen the pictures of what they took when they dug into that concrete, of what the rebar looked like in there, we sort of knew this was coming down the line. And I guess I think the pool is critical to our community, and clearly it's going to take a lot of money, millions probably, to repair it. And how soon do you believe that there could be some kind of cost estimate? And literally, if we had the money to do it, or when we find the money to do it, would be a better way to say it. How long do you believe it would take to refurbish this pool? A year?
So given the current lead time on materials, I think it would be much longer than a year. And then the cost estimate question, we would be able to turn around a cost estimate quite quickly because and unfortunately that cost estimate would likely come from, we'd have to have it divvied up by the specialties. But WTI has already provided us, it's rudimentary at best, but they give us kind of like a dollar sign metric of like $1 sign low cost, $5 sign big cost. In the report for like alternative recommendations to at least buy us time until a bigger project could happen.
Scott, then Steve, then Ryan.
It sounds like there's a lot of corrosion involved here, and it may be due to using salt in the system. Is there a way to transfer it to chlorine?
I do not know the answer to that question.
If I think that's something we might want to look at, because, salt is just corrosive as hell as far as I know, and that's one point. The second point that I have is whether or not it'll be out of commission for more than a year if we're trying to fix it. Do you think it will?
From as far as like a demolition and repair standpoint, it depends. Honestly, without doing destructive testing, there's no way that myself, an engineer, anyone would be able to provide that information. And that's the concern. The recommendations from the structural engineer for the next step forward would be to go into those areas where like the pan decking is corroding and we're getting actually through penetrations of water flow. The recommendation is to take up one of those drains to figure out what the extent of the corrosion is and then getting a review of like what the structural rebar for the facility looks like.
It sounds like it's going to be a long time. Thank you.
Adam, have you got a comment you want to add at this point?
I think systemically, you're hitting the nail on the head. And there's some advantages to salt, but in reality, the salt and the foresight, they didn't really use the foresight to use salt because they used a dissimilar metal, which is cast iron in the plumbing.
Yeah.
That has a reactive effect with salt, and that's what you're seeing systemically, and then now that's become transferred to the pan decking. Some of it's because there's it's a luxury. It's a way to come about not using chlorine, and people really like the luxuriness of it. There's a cost, and you're seeing the cost. And I'm not sure as a community we look at that as far as what we want to use there, because the salt is a big problem, and then potentially not using that fresh water enough, letting that salt accumulate and then spread, causing electrolysis amongst other things. Yes, sir. I believe you hit the nail on the head there. Switching now, I don't know what it will do for us, but yeah, I think it's valuable to look at.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, then Ryan, then Jared.
It's kind of water under the bridge, but at this point I'm wondering how much of this is design flaw, how much of it is lack of maintenance. To me, cast iron pipe with salt just doesn't make sense to begin with, so why was it designed that way if it was a just saltwater pool? Is a serious question. And if a lot of it is because of design problems not being correct for a saltwater pool, I have a little hesitation that we're using the same firm to fix it and design it properly. And besides chlorine and salt, are there any other alternatives like UV light or anything like that to treat water?
So the UV, we do have a UV system actually, and it's that's one of the things I wanted to speak to. So what the UV system does isn't it's a sterilization system, but it also takes the real function of that system is to remove the smell of the chlorine. It's really aesthetic. There's not a whole lot of value except for in a fecal event. And then in a fecal event, it'll accelerate. You don't have to use an overchemical. You can just come in there and that UV system will sterilize if in a fecal event. But the only gain of the UV really is, again, the aesthetics. You don't smell that chlorine off gas. That system is down, by the way. It's not reflected in that report. It's been about antiquated for about 5 years. We're having to get parts on eBay, and we're having to buy the parts and put them together. The manufacturer doesn't support them anymore. And that system's about 50, 60,000 to replace. So that's another thing that I kind of wanted to throw on there. It's not really shown in that report because the system was down. They weren't able to test some of the stuff because, like I said, we had the pool drained for the majority of the time that they were here to do their structural inspections.
Ryan and then Jared.
So, I have been intimately involved with most of the pool discussions and the reports, and I have been the naysayer and the, I guess, opposition force for trying to put Band-Aids on. So I just want to, I guess, give you what I'm looking for. We have a pool. It doesn't matter how we got it. It doesn't matter what the design was. It doesn't matter who was supposed to watch what. None of that's relevant anymore. So let's just move forward with the new pool needs to have a liner. With that liner, it still needs to meet size requirements. I understand that we're fractions of an inch shy if we were to overliner it. However, if we're going to renovate this, we can still get within the parameters of meeting the size requirements. So a liner, meet size requirements. I am adamantly opposed to the saltwater system. As my background in chemistry will yield, let's just go with the chlorine system. Let's go with a known quantity. Let's get rid of a UV system. That's for biologics and microorganisms. It doesn't even make sense why it's there. I don't like it. It doesn't.
There is a smell component to it, just so you know, and I argued the same exact thing with the city on that, and I was proven wrong, just so you.
No, I understand, and
measurable.
I do believe that science will support me, and that chlorine will also kill the organic decaying and bacteria aromatics, polyaromatics and polyaliphatics that are going to create the aroma that we're smelling. You had mentioned pipe sleeves. I actually just read a report a couple days ago about the new pipe sleeves, the blown-in pipe sleeves, and what they're doing for PFAS concentrations that are somewhere north of 25,000 times the EPA allowable limit with blown-in pipe sleeves. So there are PFAS-free ones. They are about 20 times the cost. And so I guess just consider that and factor that in. But I think in the assembly level, we probably need to have a discussion about this pool and the sustainment of this pool more so into maybe an enterprise fund type basis, or at least some mechanism to put what will be somewhere between $6 and $10 million worth of repairs to make this pool correctly, and get it out to the voters for the voter opinion and their input. If we do this enterprise fund, if we do some sort of transfer of responsibility, we enter into solid user agreements that are specific for maintenance. We are not pool maintenance specialists. We have a hard time maintaining buildings. So I'm looking for some key criteria to go into this. I support the pool. Disclaimer, my daughter's a diver. If I didn't support the pool, I would be on my daughter's naughty list. So I have to support the pool. I also believe in what the pool does. It brings together unity in the community. So I am not for closing this, but I am for finding a long-term viable solution that's in the most cost economical manner that we can do for our community. So that's the criteria that I'm looking for, Cody. If you can help solve some of those problems, I will turn to an advocate for you.
Okay, Jared and then Larry.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I could be here for these questions, but I put them in the chat, Cody. One's kind of a technical thing because I'm not a structural engineer, but can you explain what destructive testing is and what that would show us about the unseen corrosion beneath the tile, and if the final report will include a plan for that?
Destructive testing. So what we did was a non-destructive analysis of the facility using an architect. We had a structural engineer and a mechanical engineer present, and multiple electrical engineers, which rolled up under the mechanical. The destructive version of that, they would come in and actually jackhammer up tile, saw cut concrete, and do an analysis and testing of like the materials that they find below. Compressive strength of like concrete, looking at fragmentation, rust, corrosion, etc. The final report will not include a plan for that because it was outside of the scope, but it is something that the engineers told us that they would be willing to do, and they recommend that it should be done before moving forward with like plan for total repair.
Okay. And then I'm just concerned about the pool right now. I'm assuming that we're all still in compliance with health and safety regs and code compliance and liability kinds of things.
Correct. The only code violations that they identified was a uniform plumbing code for a heat exchanger that didn't meet code, and there was some tempering valves in the lavatory. And a failed tempering valve, but it was a low priority. And then from a life safety standpoint, the sprinkler heads were a high priority on needing to be replaced or cleaned because they are corroded and have the potential of not functioning properly.
And are we concerned that there are any like ADA access features that are at risk of these anchors further corrode?
I'm not extremely clear on which anchors you're referring to. I think if anything, with my knowledge of ADA, with the way that the tile's heaving and there's deflections and things, we probably are already at risk of potentially not meeting it in some areas.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Larry.
Just a couple of quick things, and thank you. When you talked about the water sort of working down to the space below the pool, there's no danger that the concrete's being eroded, that if we have a seismic event that it might deteriorate the pool in any way?
At the time of the inspection, the structural engineers had no concern of water infiltration leaving the pool, and we've done multiple tests with the school district to determine that the pool was not losing water. And there's something that's not in this report, but it was identified during our ARB meeting and the follow-up discussion after we got this report, is that there is a potential for water infiltration from the earth towards the pool. The water can actually be coming in that way due to a critical omission that they believe there's no waterproof membrane on the exterior walls around the pool.
Seems like there'd be some osmotic pressure there. Overall, what I'd like to say as Assembly member is when we do fix it, I want it to be fixed well. And, not just little by little, because that doesn't work and ends up worse for it. Also, is the Architectural Review Committee involved in this discussion yet? Are they actively part of this?
Yes, they are.
Great, thank you. And two more quick things. Assemblymember Sherritt mentioned something about an enterprise fund supporting these kinds of things. I don't necessarily agree with that, but what does concern me, though, is the other facility we have in our district that is probably just as valuable in a different way as the auditorium. And the school district doesn't manage the auditorium. It's not a school facility anymore. It's a borough facility, and it already has needs totaling over $1 million. So I hope, as we're looking at the pool, at some point we're going to look at the needs of the auditorium so we don't get into a major remodel of the auditorium. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got one more question.
We conduct preventative maintenance at the auditorium, sir.
Yes, they do.
We have a comprehensive list of all their assets in our CMMS system.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. It's just that at one point it lost its school number, so it's technically not a school facility at this point in time, nor is the band room.
There's some gray area there, yes, sir, but we do We
We
do
work
all the
at-
life safety, fire
Oh,
systems.
no, I appreciate, and I know
yes,
that you're
sir.
doing that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm more worried about the lighting, but that's a different topic.
But we could talk about the auditorium all day if you'd like. Because you're right, the lighting is the issue, there's no doubt, there's other issues.
Finally, the pool is maintained to a certain extent on a daily basis by the city. And then the school district provides some maintenance, then of course the borough picks up major maintenance, which is sort of where we are. You indicated during your meeting that there needs to be freshwater spraying or.
Wash down.
Wash down. Has that been added to what the city does, or is the school district taking that on? Who does that?
The city has taken a much more, now, I mean, we just had to learn what the problems were, what we thought the problems were. This is super helpful for us. So the city, under their new leadership, has taken a very, yes,
We've been working.
yes, they have.
We've been working in conjunction with the new Parks and Rec director
Washing it down,
as a collaborative approach to this. Not only having like the holistic review with the engineering team, but all parties were present in all those inspections and reviews.
Well, I believe that the borough, the city, and the school district, it's a perfect example of how they've been working together through the years and how they can to save money. And I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you.
Cody, a question that I have is, there's improper sloping on the deck, the pool deck, and water puddles in there and doesn't go towards the drains. Would this, because basically it's calling for all the tile to be removed, would we be potentially readdressing and sloping the deck so that the water is carried away properly?
So, Mr. Mayor, in our inspection, we found that I believe all of the drains were lifted. It's not necessarily that the deck is sloping. The drain, it's a sheet of penny tile over the drain, and the corrosion has lifted the drain anywhere from an inch to more. And what the staff has done, because it becomes to Assemblymember Jared's comments about ADA, they have put in traffic cones with command strips that they can remove so kids, when they're scooting across, don't trip and fall.
Well, this was a problem from the time the pool was first occupied, not just now. There's been water puddling on there before. When the first pool was opened there, we had problems on it. So what I'm saying is there is a problem with the sloping, and I'd like to make sure we address that also.
And I think
as part of this.
that would definitely be a part of the repair. And to Assemblymember Sherritt's comments about a liner, the concern, and we're still finalizing the report, communicating with architects and engineers, the depth of the rebar in the concrete itself, where they're most likely going to have to like shave that down and then add more concrete, reducing an already low margin.
Yeah, that's
area.
on the pool body, the walls itself. I'm talking on the deck.
On the deck, yes, sir. I was a part with the school district maintenance staff. They took a chain to find audible hollow spots, and we marked that area out, and it looked like a Christmas tree. And they broke up sections where bigger than part of this room, where like the rebar was just barely under the surface on the deck.
Yeah, and I understand that. It was familiar with when it was built, and the process that was used was not followed very well, and it cost us dearly then too. So I just want to make sure that all these things get addressed, because it is going to be a very expensive fix, and that's originally why I vetoed the patch job. And this is what I was afraid of. But as part of that, we're looking at doing it right and getting it done. So thank you for your time and effort. Amy.
So for next steps, do you want to see costs?
Estimate.
For the whole fix, right?
Yes.
Not interval,
parts
the
of it.
whole thing at once? Do you need any other instruction than that? Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Next item will go into the packet review. And the first item there is public hearing, State of Alaska Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office, new winery manufacturing sampling endorsement application by Friends by the Ocean. Staff report, Nova?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly. We processed this back in May, I believe, but it's back before you because they are correcting the correct address to the correct address that we asked them to. And also they're doing a rebranding where they're dropping the LLC from their name and they're just going to be Friends by the Ocean. So it's going to be before you. We've sent out public hearing notices. Anything that we receive from the public we'll distribute to you before the meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance number FY 2025-2C, amending ordinance number 2025-2, fiscal year 2025 budget by amending budgets to account for various revenues that are over budget, providing for additional expenditures, and moving funds between projects. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance is the final fiscal year 25 budget amendment. There are 11 items that staff is requesting. The items follow the ordinance, and then they're summarized in section 2 of the ordinance on line 58. Would you like me to go through those tonight?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you. Next item is contracts. Contract number FY 2026-6, Kodiak Island Borough Facilities Contract with MK Enterprises, LLC. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The previous Kodiak Island Borough Facilities Road Maintenance and Repairs contract expired in 2020. With all other road service area contracts being updated, I directed staff to issue a similar invitation to bid for the KIB facilities contract. Staff issued an invitation to bid for this contract on June 11th. The invitation to bid was advertised for the designated 3 weeks in accordance with KIB Code 3.30.040. The bids were due by July 17th. A mandatory pre-bid meeting was held on July 7th. We had 4 contractors in attendance, and at the bid opening, staff received 3 bid packages. Initially, A Maintenance LLC was identified as the apparent low bidder based on the bid tabulation. However, after a final review and processing of the bid packages in accordance with KIB Code 3.30.050, staff determined that MK Enterprise LLC was the lowest cost responsible bidder with a responsive bid package. Staff would like to review several concerns that arose during the process, and our Engineering Facilities Director, Cody Allen, is here tonight to walk us through that.
You have a question, Ryan?
Yeah, before we go too far down this, I do need to declare a potential conflict that through marriage I am related to MK Enterprise principal owner.
There is no conflict. Continue.
Good evening, Assembly members and Mayor. As discussed, staff issued an invitation to bid for this contract on June 11th, 2025. The ITB was advertised for the designated 3-week period in accordance with KIB code. Initially, A Maintenance LLC was identified as the apparent low bidder based on the preliminary bid tabulations after bid opening. However, after a final review and thorough evaluation of all bid packages, we conducted that in accordance with KIB code 33050. Staff determined that A Maintenance LLC's bid was unbalanced. The state of Alaska defines an unbalanced bid as one in which the unit price does not reasonably reflect the effort cost associated with the unit of work. In this case, staff's determination that A Maintenance LLC was deemed unresponsive was not based on the completeness of the submission or of the required documentations for the bid itself. Rather, it was due to an unbalanced pricing across the bid tables, which, per the ITB, were collectively averaged to determine the basis of award. An unbalanced bid typically includes excessively high prices for certain line items and unreasonably low prices for others, often intended to secure larger upfront payments or maximize profits through strategic distribution of cost. This was evident upon further analysis. For example, when the sweeping table was removed, the averages in the remaining tables calculated, A Maintenance LLC's bid reflects the highest overall average. Additionally, when reviewing the base bid table line by line, this shows that A Maintenance LLC submitted the highest prices for most of the core services for the overall contract. The primary work under contract includes snow removal, ice removal, sanding, and small projects under $25,000 across KIB-owned facilities. These include all borough schools, the Borough Administration Building, Kodiak Landfill Buildings, Bayside Fire Station, Women's Bay Fire Station, and the Kodiak Research Center, and various miscellaneous borough-owned properties, such as parking lots and the bike path from Abercrombie to East Elementary. However, the secondary work consists of annual sweeping services to remove the materials applied during the primary work. The added alternate work was to include hourly rates for specialized equipment that may not typically be used for the primary or secondary work, but could be useful for completing small projects. In essence, while the sweeping table reduced AIM Maintenance LLC's overall bid average, it also significantly increased the cost for the primary services to the borough, the core scope of the contract. As such, the bid strategy created an imbalance that impacted the integrity of the evaluation process. Therefore, AIM Maintenance LLC's bid was declared unresponsive and was formally rejected. After reviewing the remaining bids, staff determined that MK LLC submitted the lowest cost, responsive, and responsible bid package. My goal tonight is to bring this information forward for two main reasons. First, to inform the Assembly of the issues that arose during the bidding process, ensuring that the Engineering Facilities Department is not operating in a vacuum, and the government body is appropriately involved in atypical circumstances as they occur. Second, to promote greater transparency in the overall process and to establish public record of events such as these, which can be used to inform and improve our future procurement processes. I thank you for your time, and I'm prepared to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Scott.
Did you tell AIM all of the reasons that you considered them not responsive?
Yes, multiple times.
Thank you.
Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an interesting one. The reason that this is interesting is because this is the first time that I have heard an adaptation of the state of Alaska procurement process being mentioned. I love that we are taking a higher yield to a larger body for our procurement process. But I want to communicate to staff, Madam Manager, and the Assembly that if we're going to go this route with the service district, that means that we need to change local ordinances to follow the adaptation of the state of Alaska procurement process, and we don't get to cherry pick which rules do and do not apply to us as well. Go ahead.
No, continue, Ryan.
Okay. So I want to just caution us that if we don't do this correctly, this is a very slippery slope that could open us up to potential liability issues through the procurement process. That being said, I do agree with the decision that staff came up with. I do support the decision. I am familiar with unbalanced bids on a federal level. I have not gone through this at a state level, but at a federal level, unbalanced bids don't even get justification. They're just rejected. And you have to go through a FOIA request in order to even figure that out. The second point that I want to bring up on this is that I believe that all of the service districts, the entire procurement methodology is flawed. I have spoken with Cody about this previously, that I believe that the service districts are prime candidates for what would be considered an IDIQ with a pre-qualified contractors list, so that we would avoid the public solicitation and the latency that needs to be factored into a rapid change in environment. An IDIQ is an acronym for indefinite delivery, indefinite quantification. It is one of the popular, one of 5 procurement methodologies used at both the federal and a state level. This would go towards not just service districts, but this would also solve a previous problem that we discussed in last week's meeting as well. So I would like for us to, I guess, reflect on what this actually means with the adaptation of the state of Alaska procurement process, and then encourage staff to look at the IDIQ formalization. Thanks.
Larry?
I very much appreciate your analysis. I think, some of our training says that, the assembly is supposed to look at the law, the ordinances, and to do the right thing. Sometimes the momentum of past practice gets in the way of making changes. And what we always did before isn't always the right way. And I appreciate what you've done, because what you've done essentially has lowered the cost of services by a careful analysis. And I think it sounds like it was done in a fair and appropriate manner. And I appreciate, in your position that you're in now, that you take a close look at those contracts and that you work really hard to make sure that we're following state law and local ordinances and everything that we do. And I can't help but every person that applies for bid in any contract that we have will appreciate the consistency and the dedication to following the law instead of perhaps what we used to do. Thank you.
One of the problems with what you're doing, Cody, is you did not come out and put that in the requirements. It's not in the borough code about the unbalanced bid part. And the truth of the matter is the borough's been doing that for years, not just with the facilities contract, but also with construction contracts. Wolverine Supply is great for having unbalanced bids at different times. And so if you're going to do that, I think you need to throw all bids out and rebid this and state what it is. As you remember, I told you that on the service districts, prefer quantities. And you wanted to do the averages. This is a perfect case where I told you that it will bite you, and it has. So one of the things that I think is appropriate is to throw all bids out and rebid this and come out with the guidelines so everybody's on the same page instead of grasping for straws after the fact. That's my feeling on this. Cody?
Point of clarity, the unbalanced bidding that has been done in the past has been extremely difficult, and I've reviewed and provided multiple copies to review of that. If we reject all the bids, I just want the assembly to be aware of the risk involved in that, because right now what you have before you is a very clear case of an unethical bidding practice. The code does state that we're supposed to reject things like this. If you review the language, you're supposed to look at the integrity and things of the contractor in the bidding process itself. This is probably the hardest thing, even as a project manager, that you have to do. Especially now transitioning into a director, because we're limited in contractors in the community, and it's never it's like a crucial conversation. It's a very difficult conversation to have with the individual. However, it's black and white. They bid, if you look at the bid tab for, that isn't included, it's included in the packet. We went ahead and, to be transparent, included all the bid tabs. They only bid $100 for up to like 100 and something thousand square feet for snow removal at the administrative complex. So $100 barely covers, and I referenced the prevailing wage because it's not a prevailing wage requirement for snow removal, but it is a state established cost to let us know what the bottom baseline is. They're like $20 over the prevailing wage. They're $50 less than their hourly wage. And if you reject all these bids and we allow them to rebid, they also already have 3 contracts, so it'll be much easier to unbalance and hide that cost in other contracts, as we've done in the past, and not be able to track what the true cost is coming in. And having changed all the contracts, we now run the risk of providing payroll and invoicing through certified payroll to the state without being 100% honest in our own integrity of what we're reviewing and signing off on.
It's one way of looking at it. I happen to look at it a different way because I can also see, if I go through the detail on MK, I can see unbalanced bidding in their pricing also. So I feel there's a problem with both of them. And I think that it is the best interest of the borough. We are not in a hurry. It's primarily a winter maintenance contract. And you have an opportunity to come up with the standards that you want and make it very clear for all bidders. Ryan?
I'd just like to ask my fellow assembly members if I could get another assembly member to back my position to get a legal representation, legal interpretation with a summary of findings of what potential exposure would be on either one of these reject bids or award bids, if I could get somebody else to back that.
You got it.
If you can do that this week, that would be very greatly appreciated. We just need to look at this from an exposure, from a liability standpoint. Thanks.
Seeing no further, Larry, you had.
I want to reiterate, you work for the city manager who takes her direction from.
Borough manager, Larry. Larry, would you turn your mic on?
I want to reiterate that in your position, you work for the borough manager who gives you direction, not the mayor, not an individual assembly member. We're all welcome to our opinions, but we speak as an assembly. And any decisions that you made are responsible to the manager who's responsible to us. I, for one, believe that everybody that bid on that contract, and I haven't looked at them, knows exactly what an imbalanced contract is. Okay, it's not new to them. And if a contract was issued as an imbalanced contract, they knew exactly what they were doing. If it was past practice or not, they did that. They knew that. And so, first off, you saved us money if we follow through on the contract. I believe it's been a legitimate manner, and I suspect there won't be any more imbalanced contracts in the future if we follow this. But to just because we've done it before, because we didn't do that kind of analysis that we should have done, so we should just throw it all out. I don't agree with that. I believe that you did exactly what we hire you to do. It's up to the assembly to approve or disapprove, the contract, and they can do that. But I appreciate the job that you're doing. I appreciate your analysis, and from my point of view, it was a fair process. And I believe if I have any concerns with anything that you've done, I would take them up with the manager, not come and tell you directly what you should or shouldn't do. Thank you.
Seeing no further comments, we'll move on to the next contract, number FY 2026-7, Kodiak School Painting with Highmark Marine Fabrication, LLC. Staff report, Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At my direction, engineering and project staff began planning a painting project for Kodiak School, where the building's exterior is currently in decent condition. A fresh coat of paint will help preserve and extend the lifespan of the envelope of the school. In addition to maintaining the structure, this project also offers the borough an opportunity to evaluate the scope, logistics, and material requirements needed for the painting of the Kodiak School building. Staff issued an invitation to bid for this contract on June 30th, advertised for the designated 3 weeks per KIB code, and bids were due by July 24th. There was a mandatory pre-bid meeting held on July 15th, and there were 2 contractors in attendance. At the bid opening, staff received 1 bid package. Following the review of the bid package, staff determined Highmark Marine Fabrication, LLC to have a complete bid package and is the only bidder and therefore the lowest cost bidder at $88,600 for the base bid and $8,180 for alternate 1. The E&F director is here tonight if you have any questions about that contract.
For the public, would you expand upon alternate 1?
Alternate 1 was the additional painting of an additional small building outside of the main school structure, which I don't believe we're going to follow up on because there's a large amount of rot on that building, so it makes sense to paint it.
So the recommendation is going to be to go with the base bid only?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions of Cody, or Cody, you got anything else you want to say on this one? All right. Seeing none, no questions, we'll move on to the next contract, which is FY 2026-9, authorization to contract with Dark Trace for network security, appliance and security services. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you. The Kodiak Island Borough currently uses Darktrace on-premise cybersecurity solution to support IT security infrastructure. The solution includes AI-driven network threat detection, real-time monitoring, and active defense capabilities. The current agreement with Darktrace is set to expire on September 30th to ensure uninterrupted cybersecurity protection and maintain compliance with our IT security standards. The IT department recommends renewing the contract for an additional 3 years. This is about $24,000 a year, but because it's going to go over my $50,000 spending authority over the course of the contract, we're bringing it to the assembly. The cost of the 3-year contract is $74,633. And this is something that IT says is doing a very good job for us, and they would like to continue using the same software.
Scott?
I just love their name. They sound like a cybersecurity
They really
group,
do.
don't
It's
they?
a great name, yes.
It sounds cheap, too. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution FY 2026-4, designating Community Development Department Director Chris French as the temporary administrative official during the absence or disability of the Borough Manager and designated administrative official. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the recent departure of our environmental specialist from the Borough, I'm putting forth a nomination of Chris French, who's our Community Development Director, to be the temporary administrative official to serve during both the manager's absence and the designated official's absence. So both Seema and myself would have to be unable to serve here at the Borough in order for Chris to be active in this role. We established a couple of years ago that it's a really good idea to have 2 backups, and there is a time in December that we already know that Seema and I will both be in Anchorage for parts of the AML conference, so it's great to have a backup. In our code change, it was recommended that this person be here for 2 years before they could serve this. Mr. French is coming up on that here in the next month, so he's not quite at 2 years, but he will be over the 2 mark before he's asked to serve in that capacity.
Thank you. Any questions? Ryan?
I'd actually like to postpone this until he meets the qualifications rather than in an anticipatory stance.
The code, which is fine, the code does say that it's recommended that they be here. It's not mandatory, but I'm happy to delay that until he hits his 2-year anniversary if that's what the Assembly prefers.
So what's your recommendation? Are you looking to postpone at the meeting? Unless you get a consensus to pull it.
Well, I'm not looking to pull it, I guess, but, again, we're in the rule-making and try to remove ambiguity from our codes, and I understand it says recommended, but recommended by whom and for what purpose? I just think that 2 years means 2 years. I mean, we do put steadfast deadlines on things like tax payments and things like that, so why flex the rules for ourselves?
Nova?
Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly and Manager, maybe something that you could consider is that maybe change the resolution to have an effective date.
After the 2 years.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
They're in agreement. You have direction, Madam Clerk. All right. Next is resolution number FY 2026-5, a resolution of the Assembly of the Kodiak Island Borough allocating fiscal year 2026 Kodiak Island Borough nonprofit funding. Staff report, Amy.
Thank you,
Should
Mr.
be
Mayor. This will just be the resolution that puts into play the decisions that you made tonight. And since we've been at the meeting, I have talked to our finance director about using the PILT money to make up that excess, and she said we'll just take care of that during our first budget amendment for fiscal year 26 budget, so it should be no problem.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinances for introduction. This is ordinance number FY 2026-4, amending various sections of the Kodiak Island Borough Code, Title 17 zoning, related to assisting living residents. Staff report, Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our current KIB code says that a primary residence and permanent place shall mean a dwelling which is owned and the person resides there for 185 days a year. For purposes of exemptions, the state of Alaska uses 188 days for PFD qualification. there is a discrepancy between 185 days and 180 days, and so we're looking to align our code with the 180 days to match the PFD standard. That'll make determining exemptions easier for staff without that 5-day difference. So this code changes that. Oh, I'm sorry, are we doing assisted living first?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you could have stopped me a while ago.
What? I was wondering, where are we going?
I was really excited about the PFD part. Sorry about that. My folders obviously were in the wrong order. Let's talk about assisted living. Starting over. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on July 16th regarding a code amendment to various sections of Title 17 related to assisted living facilities. The commission voted to recommend approval of these changes with Resolution Fiscal Year 2601, which is in your packet tonight. Most of our current licensed properties are located within the two-family residential district and multifamily residential district. The proposed code amendment would allow assisted living facilities in the rural residential 2 district, rural residential district, rural residential 1 district, single-family residential district, and two-family residential district, and finally, the multifamily residential district. Assisted living facilities would be allowed in the multifamily residential district, business districts, urban neighborhood commercial districts, and retail business districts. Conditional use permits would allow assisted living facilities to be in rural residential 1 districts, single-family residential, and two-family residential districts. The code amendment also includes updates to parking requirements for both assisted living homes and assisted living facilities. This recommended code change will be seen on August 7th as an ordinance for introduction, on August 14th again in packet review, and on August 21st in a public hearing. So it was brought several times to community development staff and planning and zoning commissioners that assisted living facilities were just not mentioned in code. So when you look through the packet tonight, you'll just see the addition of those words as accepted uses in all those different kinds of districts throughout code.
Thank you. Any questions? Moving on. Oh, sorry, Scott.
Do we incur a liability in any way for the assisted living? Do we have to license the people who are doing the assistance?
That all comes through
Who
the state.
does that?
That all comes through the state of Alaska.
Yeah.
So the state does that, so
Yes.
we're not on the hook.
No, we are not. We're just
Okay.
changing our actual zoning rules where they're allowed.
And do we have any responsibility about checking where they're occurring? Does somebody have to go in and look it over?
We do not do anything with licensing.
Who does that?
That's also the state of Alaska.
Okay, so the assisted living house, the facility, is examined by the state of Alaska?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one, ordinance number FY 2026-6, amending Kodiak Island Borough Code Title III, Revenue and Finance, Chapters 3.35, Real Property Tax, Section 3.35.030, Real and Personal Property Exempted from Taxation regarding definitions. Staff report, Amy?
Hey, you may have heard about this one.
Yeah, that other one.
The state of Alaska uses 180 days as their qualifier for being eligible for the PFD. Our current code uses 185 days for being qualifying for your exemptions. Assessing staff is asking that we update code to make those align, so we would like to change our code to say 180 days qualifies you for our exemptions. That will make it a lot easier to determine eligibility instead of worrying about the difference of those 5 days. So in your packet tonight, it's just an update. You'll see that code just would change from 185 days to 180 days inside of 3.35.030. And our assessor is here tonight to answer any questions that you might have about that.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to managers.
Most of the manager's report has been covered in our multiple topics tonight, but there's a couple of things I wanted to cover real quick. We talked about our PILT increase. There is a presentation scheduled for our work session on the 14th. About North Star and Shunak wanting to move their daycare there. There is emergency management training. ICS 300 is going to be a local in-person class if anyone's interested in attending that. There hasn't been any change in our software conversion timeline. I did want to touch base with our emergency alerts. So if you've gotten Nixle alerts, those Nixle alerts are going to fade out. If you want to get alerts for emergencies or from the police, you need to text the word Kodiak to 38276. That'll sign you up for the new Civic Plus alert system. In community development, for the multi-hazard, multi-jurisdiction mitigation plan, that has been resubmitted to the state and approved and is back with FEMA after we got comments from them. We had an open house on transportation and community facilities and services on July 22nd. If you are still interested in input for that, there is a web address there, and it's on our community development page on our website. Our 2045 comprehensive plan is headed out to the villages on August 13th and September 13th for Old Harbor and Uzinki. We're still working on figuring out how to schedule visits to the other villages. Our hydrology and hydraulics study final findings report made it into the Borough on July 28th. Staff is reviewing it, and you'll see it at the assembly very soon. In finance, the first deadline for property taxes, if you're going to make your first half payment, is due on Friday, August 15th. Our property assessment and taxation project, still good for September 23rd, like the timeline we just talked about. Our electronic timesheet implementation project has been put on hold for a little bit. We're training a new payroll technician. In assessing, we had one senior citizen withdraw for their good cause hearing, so we only have one senior citizen hearing that's going to be taking place on August 21st. Assessing has been in villages and remote areas. Akiak, Karluk, Larson Bay, as well as remote fly-ins are done. They are in Old Harbor. They were there earlier this week, and they're going back tomorrow, and their final boat trip is scheduled for September 22nd. In engineering and facilities, we just talked about the Kodiak School and the service area contracts. We are 12 weeks out on our industrial pump Alaska for KFRC. Out at the landfill, the regional solid waste management plan is underway. We are scheduled for a waste characterization the week of August 11th and a village waste characterization the week of August 18th. Community surveys are being prepared and planned for distribution as well. We issued an RFP for the landfill service water monitoring annual contract on July 1st, and proposals for that are due on August 4th. We just finished up the facility parking lot line painting, and we just have to do project closeout for that. In information technology, IT is reviewing recent network security scans and are focusing on getting critical severity issues patched. They're working on how to best set up the landfill network to accommodate our new Starlink out there. Hardware and infrastructure, IT is testing Laserfish systems for the clerks. People are still getting new monitors, and for system administration, they are improving our systems management software, renewing cybersecurity contracts. That's that dark trace contract we just talked about. And GIS is working on Max for community development for their trips to Uzinki. Also in the report tonight is our July projects office report from Cody and Patricia. So if you have any questions about that, Cody is still here, but this has been very helpful to watch those projects progress throughout the year. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? Seeing none, move on to clerk's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly. We are now working on NIDIP in elections. The first day to file for candidacy will be tomorrow, and we will be accepting nominating packets from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. until August 15th. So the hours again is 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And I just want to remind everyone who will be filing that candidate names will be listed on the ballot in the order that the candidacy declarations are filed. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Assembly member comments. Dave, we'll start with you.
No comment.
Steve.
I'd like to thank for the presentation and the talk about the pool. You clarified some things. Other than that, and the fact that hopefully we're working out a good way to do the nonprofits. They are an important part of this town. I happen to overlook one from my house and see that it does a lot of activity every night. That's it.
Larry.
Just a suggestion. You know, we talked a lot about the pool today, and we know that it's going to take a lot of money to fix it and involve possible long-term closures. Perhaps maybe we could talk to the Kodiak mayor and you and the superintendent or the facilities directors could talk to the Kodiak mayor and let the public know. And it was? Okay, great. And then maybe include the auditorium at some point in time, because we're running into major things there too, if I remember correctly. Also, the monthly project report that I saw in your manager's report today was outstanding. And I appreciate Patricia and her boss putting it together, and I really like it, and I think that it was just a real step forward, and I hope it's on our webpage, like what you post your manager's report, which is also very excellent for informing the Republic, so I appreciate that. Also, I agree with Mr. Ames. Today or next week, we'll allocate funds for nonprofits to support our community, and I'm really proud of an assembly that worked really hard to make it happen, and sometimes I complain about the time that we put on it compared to others, but it's time well spent ultimately to do it right and also to give nonprofits a chance to come here and talk to us. And finally, it was a pleasure to see Monty Haver in the audience today because, you know, you could call him Mr. Nonprofit, and I know all the work that he did to support families and to develop, you know, the Brother Francis Shelter is outstanding. I haven't seen him for a long time, but I certainly want to recognize his presence tonight. Thank you.
Scott.
No comment.
Ryan.
I do have a couple comments to make up for Scott's no comments. So first thing, I would like to give a huge shout out to Rich Gonzalez, who left our jointly shared emergency manager position and has taken a position with the city fire chief. I appreciate that jointly shared position, and I look forward to further defining those roles for the next person to occupy that position. So wish him absolutely good luck. Another is congratulations, Cody Allen, on the new engineering facilities director. I am very excited to look forward to procurement changes and process management and OPAs, organizational process assets, and I am really looking forward to what we're going to be doing in the procurement world and that solidification and references to other bodies. I appreciate the Assembly's discussion and allowing me to dip into the PILT fund to fund those nonprofits. I enjoyed seeing a speedy resolve, and I am also further anticipating a much-needed discussion about a transfer station, and I would love to be involved with that in the infancy stages, just based on my background in education. So, other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor comments, I have none at this time, so we will adjourn the work session at 9:08 p.m. and thank everyone for joining us tonight remotely and in person. Good night.